It's Ocean Drive in Coney Island.
Ocean Drive is the only luxury rentals in New York with a spectacular ocean view. You wake up in the morning and breathe that ocean air. I'll certify that you're going to live 10 years longer. When I became successful, I wanted to live on the ocean. If you have worked hard, you deserve an apartment on Ocean Drive too. Go to oceandrivenyc.com and reward yourself.
If you're a policeman, fireman, doctor, nurse, or teacher, you qualify for a limited time offer at oceandrivenyc.com. Terms and conditions apply.
In the squadron, they called him Bullets, but we call him Greg Kelly. Greg Kelly is on the air
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Whoa. All right. Hi, everybody. So it's a Hispanic Heritage Month. Diego, you're Hispanic. Were you aware of this?
Yeah. They had promos and stuff.
Internally, though, right?
Internally,
yeah. Is it we got to make it a thing, a national thing. We love Hispanics. We love Hispanics, and we love the multicultural aspect of America. And it's a beautiful thing. You know, a lot of countries don't have what we have going on, right? You go outside, a lot of states don't have what we have going on. You go outside, you know, people from all over the world, and what difference does that make? Well, it makes a good amount of difference. I like eating food, exotic food. I like eating stuff that I'm not familiar with. I like learning things. I like learning about other countries and all that stuff. So it's actually a lot of fun. And we'll have a very special guest in just a little bit. So right now, Donald Trump is exposing how much of a fraud the entire system is. I mean, the entire system through and through, totally and completely corrupt. We have a beautiful framework. We have the United States Constitution, and it's an amazing document, but we have people who have so violated it, perverted it, and weaponized it, trying to go after Trump. Oh my God, it is so unbelievably unfair. We know what real criminal conduct is, right? We do. You read that Menendez indictment. This guy, yeah, that's wrong. And there's a reason why you don't hear from a Menendez much anymore, right? Because how the hell is he going to explain that? But all this other stuff on Trump, it is a joke. It is laugh out loud funny, or just so minor and so ridiculous it's not even a crime. I mean, leaving a voicemail for somebody in Georgia, or Donald Trump speaking on a conference call about, hey, I think this vote, I don't trust this vote. Are you guys doing a good job down there? I don't think you are. You're allowed to do those things in America. So it's really cool how he's showing up at court every day. He doesn't have to be there. And I hear the attorneys are doing a fantastic job, whereas the prosecutors are giggling and laughing. Even the judge is all nervous, like, oh boy, we got a lot of heat here. We got a lot of scrutiny. And Trump came, yeah, because it's going to help expose this thing. I kind of wish that he had went to the E. Jean Carroll thing. E. Jean Carroll, you know, that nutty kook of a person who said, yeah, I was assaulted in a dressing room in Bergdorf Goodman sometime in the mid-1990s, and now I demand justice. And you got those women's groups applauding this kind of stuff. Wrong. Wait until it happens to your brother, your son, your father. Then how will you feel? My God. What they have done so much damage. All right, I'll keep our eye on that. Actually, I've got a lot of good stuff on that. And this crazy judge, what a nitwit. I just saw him give a speech. Number one, he's wearing a purple shirt. Who wears a purple shirt with a tie? He literally looks like a clown. I mean, literally like a clown. He looks like Bozo the clown. At one point, he says his whole family called him Bozo. Yeah. I see why. I can see the resemblance, the crazy, unruly hair and your crazy color, lack of coordination. I mean, the kind of stuff a clown would wear. Is Kevin McCarthy going to be removed as Speaker? Is this real? All right. Matt Gaetz always struck me as a pretty sharp guy, interesting. He was really good in using those 5 minutes against Democrats very, very effectively when he was on the Senate Judiciary Committee and exposing the fraudsters in the Democrat Party, the impeachment inquiry 1, fake impeachment 2, all that stuff. He was great. Give him 5 minutes and he can use it and run with it. And quite frankly, humiliate people who deserve humiliation. The Attorney General, the FBI Director, people like that. I'm not sure this is a good thing that he's doing. Now, I'm no big Kevin McCarthy fan. I'm not a fan of any of these people, to be honest. Career politicians in general, of which Matt Gaetz is one. I've met Matt Gaetz once. I like him. But, I mean, I'm sorry. It's actually very good that I only met him once. I don't get close to these people. I could hang out with them all the time. I could get off the records. I could, but then you kind of owe them, and then they expect certain things from you, especially if they give you information that they think is special. Well, this is one chunk of information that serves your purposes. I'm like, does this serve my purposes? Does this serve my audience purposes? Is this true? This is your version of things. What do they think, right? So if you start playing that game, and a lot of journalists do, right? They're nice to the people who give them information. And usually that information, it's not necessarily true. It's not necessarily valuable, but they play it like it's valuable. They play it like it's true because they want more of it, because they don't have anything to say themselves, and they rely on these people to give them stuff. So then you play that whole crazy sick game. I don't have to play that game. Now, however, I will tell you, I'm having trouble making heads or tails as to what the hell is going on down there. It would only take 5 Republicans to vote with the Democrats, presuming the Democrats all vote against McCarthy for another speaker, and McCarthy is done. He seemed to acknowledge that this morning. He's like, yeah, I could be out of a job. I could lose this thing. But he said it like with such confidence and utter lack of nervousness, although he did kind of blink in a funny way that tells me he's probably a little bit nervous, that this thing could blow up. He could lose it, but then again, maybe he knows something. Maybe he's not going to lose it. I don't know. Now, I do know this. When the Democrats have power, they do seem a bit more organized and disciplined, and they have an agenda, and everybody kind of sticks to it. That's both good and bad. Both good and bad. I mean, with the Democrats, I really feel like it's party over country with these people. Party loyalty over loyalty to the country. And proof of that right now is the total lack of kind of credible opposition to Joe Biden from the Democrat Party. Well, we got to stay organized as a party. Yeah, but what about the country? Well, we got to stay organized as a party. We can't talk the truth. We can't. Everybody knows that Joe Biden is not up to this job. Everybody can see it. He is failing right in front of us. This is ripe for a primary challenge, right? And these people are very, very ambitious, very, very aggressive. When we can, I'd like to go dip down back to the court. Donald Trump, he gave like 3 press conferences yesterday. It's awesome. He is on fire. He is mad, and to call them out on their crap they so deserve it. Let's see here. I don't think I've ever seen Trump quite as mad at one point. Where's the part where he says this whole thing is ridiculous? He says it's ridiculous. Cut 18, please.
We're wasting our time on this trial with a Democrat judge from the clubhouses. It's a disgrace. They ought to look for the murderers and the killers that are all over New York killing people, and the violent crime that's being committed in our city and our state is disgraceful. And we're going to be here for months with a judge that already made up his mind. It's ridiculous. He's a Democrat judge. He's an operative, and it's ridiculous. Other than that, things went very well.
I love it. And I've heard people say right away, the CNN fact checkers come on. Actually, this is civil court, and they would not be going after robbers and murderers. You know what they could be going after? Genuine scam artists. And they're everywhere. My phone rings 17 times a day with some spammer, sometimes from Nigeria, sometimes from upstate New York, sometimes from Utah, sometimes right here in New York City, 718 area code. Who are these people? You know what? They're trying to rip you and me off. And they're successful. They don't have to be successful every time we hang up on them. But you know how many people actually take that call and start signing away their identity, their accounts, all that stuff? This is the kind of crap an attorney general should be vigilant and active in opposing. Just read the indictment. Read any of these indictments against Trump. You'll see bogus case after bogus case after bogus case that will put you to sleep. You're like, where's the illegality here? There is none. There is none. Zero. It's not illegal. He's accused of doing legal things. Which, you've heard that term, gaslight? They're gaslighting not only him, they're gaslighting all of us. And this Tish James can run around like she is, well, this is what she really sounds like, and this is what prosecutors sound like in general. You know? They sound very self-important and, ooh, this is all about, well, actually, here's a moment. Here's Tish James sounding like prosecutors try to sound, right? Ooh, they're fighting for us, and they're fighting corruption. They're just so solemn about their duties, right? Cut 17, please. Cut 17.
My message is simple. No matter how powerful you are, no matter how much money you think you may have, no one is above the law. And it is my responsibility and my duty and my job to enforce it. The law is both powerful and fragile. And today in court, we will prove our case. I thank you all for being here. And again, justice will prevail.
Oh, wow. Isn't that, what a beautiful statement. So powerful, right? She learns these lines and she practices them because she's no lawyer. I mean, she knows nothing about the law. This is a scheme and a scam to take out a person that we all like, right? That we're rooting for, that's doing well in the polls. And it's also a scheme and a scam to get her into higher office. State Attorney General. What do they do all day long? You know, everybody knows it's much cooler to be a governor. Nobody wants to be the State Attorney General for that long. She's already kind of overstated. It's like, okay, what's next? You parlay this stuff into something bigger and better. She can't parlay this into a big-time job at a law firm because they know, real lawyers know that she's no lawyer. So the only thing she can really do is get high, become a governor, become a senator. And almost every single attorney general in this history of attorneys general run for something. For instance, let me think about this. Well, what was Andrew Cuomo before he was governor? He was a state attorney general. What was Eliot Spitzer before he was governor? State attorney general. Nobody remembers the name Abrams, Robert Abrams, but he ran for the Senate, I think, twice. What was he? State attorney general. Let me think. All right. Well, I think I just named about half of the attorney generals for the past 30 years. That's a lot of them. There's a guy named Dennis Vacco, V-A-C-C-O. I don't know if he ran for anything. He lost to Eliot Spitzer. It's tough if you can't win re-election to run for something else. But it is a stepping stone. Hey, here's another one. Kamala Harris. What was she before she was vice president? A U.S. senator. What was she before that? A state attorney general. It is a stepping stone. They care very little about, because it's not really a glorious post. You can't go after the real criminals, the bad guys. It's commercial fraud, that kind of stuff. It's not as glamorous, although there are really bad people out there who pick on little old ladies and try to take their money. But this is what Tish James and other prosecutors really sound like when they don't think anybody is looking. She sounded all vainglorious there, didn't she? But this is what she sounds like, in close quarters. Cut 15, please. Cut 15.
Will you sue him for us?
Oh, we're going to definitely sue him. We're going to be a real pain in the ass. He's going to know my name personally.
I'm going to be a real pain in his ass, right? Compared to no one is above the law, and we will seek justice. How do you think Jack Smith talks when no one's around, right? He talks the same way, the same tough guy stuff. I went to his Facebook page. He's like this Iron Man tough guy. He does these hideously long bike rides, 100-mile bike ride, 26-mile run, and what's the other thing they do? They swim for like 3 miles. Anybody who does that definitely has a screw loose. I mean, I know there are good people out there, but I really wouldn't do that anymore, especially the one in New York. Almost every year somebody dies of a heart attack in that silly swim. The body was not made to do all that stuff. So the censorship of Trump, even though he's the most talked about man in the universe, what they did what they continue to do is pretty fascinating. The generals of this country, of this military, there are a handful of good ones, but most of them are treacherous, duplicitous, backstabbers, and ass kissers at the same time. It's a very interesting combination, but I will prove it to you next. Be right back.
Greg Kelly
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Sorry, got carried away with the Hispanic Heritage festivities down the hall. Amazing food from Central and South America and Puerto Rico and Cuba. Is there a difference between Cuban food? Yeah, there is. What's the difference between Cuban food and Mexican food?
Cubans, I think they put a lot of olives in their food, whereas in Mexico we put a lot of potatoes in our food.
Huh. I mean, and what is the definition of Hispanic when you think about it? What is that?
Hispanic, to me, my definition is historically Spanish. So a country that used to be part of Spain, but now isn't. Technically, some may say Spain itself is Hispanic because it was always Spain, but I don't know.
But the thing about it is Spain is geographically pretty small.
It's tiny, yeah.
So you got, I mean, very small, but damn, what an impact.
Same thing with the English. You know, the English conquered half the world and they were a small country, you know?
All right. Listen, in the meantime, I sent you a clip. This is all the way back from 2015. And President Trump was so ill-served by so many entities in the swamp. The swamp wanted nothing to do with him. Even Republicans preferred Hillary. I'm talking about the swamp dwellers. Hillary, they knew who she was. They knew how to do business with her. You'd be surprised how many career politicians did not want Trump, are still opposed to Trump, who are conservative, who are Republican. You know, some of them would rather raise money off of, we got to overturn Roe v. Wade someday, right? That's a pitch that they've known, that they know how to deliver, and they have delivered. But once Roe v. Wade is overturned, thanks to Trump and winning in 2016, they have no idea what to do. And they certainly let down themselves and the country by sitting on their hands in 2022. They didn't work in the midterms at all. It's one of the reasons we are where we are. All right, so this thing is serious about McCarthy. I'll come back to him in a second. The vote's going to start in a couple of minutes. But the generals are totally in over their head, especially the 4 stars. You know, they go from base commander to like in charge of the whole military in a matter of about a year and a half. They don't know what they're doing. I'll be back in a moment.
Greg Kelly, entertaining and informative
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
That's right. That's right. This is a beautiful thing that we'll never probably see again. When somebody high profile finds himself in trouble, they suck it up, they lawyer up, and they keep their mouths shut, and they play along. Everybody plays a part, except Trump. And it is amazing. And as Bill O'Reilly reminded me yesterday, you know, one of the reasons why he can, and, you know, not everybody can be like Trump. Look, he's got his own money. He's his own boss. You know, he doesn't work for anybody. And there's tremendous freedom in that. Hey, I'm grateful I have a boss. Don't get me wrong. All right. But I mean, but he's a billionaire, independent, and he doesn't have to rely on anybody else. And, he can shoot his mouth off when a lot of other people have to kind of answer to this crazy, corrupt system. Now, I think the people who brought this lawsuit and who indicted him over the past several months, they weren't counting on that part of the equation, or they omitted that in their head. They thought, well, he'll be like everybody else. You know, you got a lot of politicians out there and they shoot their mouths off and they say stuff and right. But Donald Trump is the only one. I mean, he's the only Donald Trump. And in real time, he's calling out all of this stuff. And they don't know. They've never had this before. A defendant, a subject of a lawsuit, you know, calling out the system as it's going down. And I'm looking at Trump's posts on Truth Social every step of the way. He's like, this is 53 minutes ago. And remember, he's in the courtroom with this judge. Judge Engoron has been false and grossly misleading information putting out to the public about my net worth by a lying and incompetent attorney general, such as Mar-a-Lago being worth $18 million when in fact the number would be much closer to $1.5 billion. Like other properties, including two that were recently sold for numbers many times those that were listed in the financial statements. The New York State Attorney General therefore committed fraud for political and election interference reasons. This case should therefore be dismissed. I love it. He's doing that right in the courtroom, putting this out. And you know, at first when he the other day he said like 100 times more. And I'm like, well, it's not 100 times more. He's exaggerating. Actually, it's 100 times more. 18 million times. What is 18 million times 100? Get back to me on that. I think it's 1.8 billion. All right. Possibly. Yeah. The numbers, he's not wrong about these numbers. He's not. They are out to get him. What else did he post this morning? This morning, everybody. This is happening in real time. Again, they don't like it. They didn't think this was going to happen. They forgot who they were messing with. Let's see here. This Mar-a-Lago thing really bothers him, and understandably so. Here we go. Now that it has been agreed in court that Mar-a-Lago is worth 50 to 100 times the value that the racist and incompetent Attorney General of New York State, Letitia Peekaboo James, ascribed it $18 million, and likewise other assets that were valued crazily low by this monster, he puts monster in quotes, that has allowed violent crime in New York to reach epidemic levels and dangerous illegal migrants to roam free all over our state. We hope the judge will terminate his first ruling of fraud in that he was given false and ridiculous information by the Trump deranged lunatic A.G. James. In actuality, I am worth far more than the numbers put down on the financial statements, not less. In addition, there is a far-reaching and professionally drawn disclaimer clause boldly stated on the first page of the document, all in caps. This entire case should be thrown out and dismissed. The AG should be reprimanded and sanctioned for bringing this case with its fake low values in order to make me look bad. Election interference. And of course, he's tweeting all this stuff, and he's saying the same, he's saying it out loud as well. This is why the judge is like all nervous. The prosecutors all nervous. They're weirded out. They've never seen anything like this before. Cut two, please. Cut two.
This trial could have been brought years ago, but they waited till I was right in the middle of my campaign. So it's all run by DOJ, which is corrupt.
Yep. Let's try cut 7.
I built a great company. That's one thing people are seeing all the way back to 2011. And today, it's much bigger and much better and even much more liquid. That was $258 million for a real estate development. That's a lot of money. It was in 2011. Today, it's much more than that, much, much more. I built a great company and did great things for New York, and they should respect that. I've employed thousands and thousands of people in New York, and they should respect that.
I do respect that. I do. Somebody who's actually provided jobs. You think the judge has done that? You think Letitia James has done that? No, she's been on the public payroll her entire adult life. The judge, he was in private practice. Oh, I should point out, the way they write these financial disclosure forms, they're so whacked, and they're designed to confuse, not to illuminate. And the figures yesterday were written with 3 decimal points, so 300.000 on the financial. I thought that meant $300,000, right? With our crazy, wacky political system, that actually means $300. Nobody writes $300 like that. You would write 300.00. That's $300. 300.000. That would strike most people as $300,000, right? Anyway, and he was giving all these little payments to various Democrat groups, because that's what you do if you want to be a judge or you want some sort of political patronage job, which his job is. Now, I have do we have that tape of the judge that I sent? Okay. Here he is speaking to the good people at Queensborough Community College, and he's there for a lecture, and he's boring everybody to tears. That's the real crime. He goes there, and he's a terrible speaker. And then he starts saying some wacky things, and I guess it becomes slightly more interesting, where he's like, he admits that I'm not supposed to do this as a judge, but I'm going to do it, and I'm going to share it with you right now. Are we ready? All right, Judge Engoron, when he thinks he's just giving a lecture to a small class in Queens and he can get away with saying stuff, but he does see the camera and he acknowledges it. All right, go ahead.
Now, I'm going to say something controversial, even though I'm being taped. Juries get it wrong a lot. That's my own opinion. I do only civil trials, personal injury cases, contract disputes. But I've had situations where, like, oh my heaven's sake, how could they have thought that? Well, I have a tool that I can deal with that. It's called judgment notwithstanding the verdict. I can say there is no possible way that a reasonable jury would have reached that conclusion. And all right, am I following the law or am I making law? Okay, I'm following law. I'm an impartial referee, but it's hard to factor out my own emotions. And I have tools. Somebody can say, well, Your Honor, you have to throw out this case because it's just like another case. Well, is it just like another case? What if the defendant was wearing a red sweater instead of a blue sweater? Oh, and by the way, I worked for the Columbia Daily Spectator for a couple of weeks. What happened was I went there every day, and I wrote a few stories. One I got criticized on because I wrote that.
All right, stop for a second. Then he goes on into he wanted to be a journalist for a while. But pretty interesting. His emotions, he just said he lets his emotions get involved. His emotions. He has you're supposed to stifle those. You're supposed to put those aside. That's the whole thing about being a judge, isn't it? Anyway, more about this fiasco of a case in a little bit. We are so fortunate to have with us former Congresswoman Mayra Flores, a total superstar in my book, Republican of Texas, native born in Mexico. She became an American citizen legally. I think she was the first sitting member of Congresswoman who was born in another country as a citizen of that country. Congresswoman Flores, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here with you and share my story.
Thank you very, very much. And folks, if you forgot, there was a spectacular moment involving the Congresswoman's daughter who got the brush from Nancy Pelosi. It's a total, I mean, I can't believe that happened. We'll get
Horrible.
to that. Just totally. All right, so let's talk about it. You're there. You're being sworn in. It's a beautiful day. You're with your family. You got 2 kids, right?
I have 4, 2 boys and 2 girls.
Oh, okay. And then you're married to a great guy who I think, was he a Border Patrol man?
He's a Border Patrol. He's currently a Border Patrol agent.
So what happened when you were sworn in?
You know, I didn't see anything happen when I started getting all these text messages that they saw Speaker Nancy Pelosi at the time push my daughter. I honestly did not see it happen at that moment. My dad wasn't there. He was back home in South Texas. My mom was there with me, but my dad wasn't able to attend. But he was watching this live when he saw it, and he called me right away. But I honestly thought he saw wrong. I was like, "There's no way, Dad. No, I think you're seeing things." And he was very upset. This was all, my dad's Spanish speaking, and he said, "No, yo lo vi. I saw it." And I said, "Okay, Dad, I'll look at the video and see exactly what happened." I asked my daughter, and she honestly didn't realize anything either. And then I saw everything, and I was just in complete shock. But I was very proud of my daughter that she didn't even allow it to bother her or ruin her moment.
She stood her ground. She stood her ground. And
stood her ground, yes.
So, just so everybody knows, posing for a picture, I mean, what could go wrong? Well, you're posing for a picture with Nancy Pelosi, so a lot can go wrong. And she thought that Myra's beautiful daughter was standing too close and literally with the back of her hand pushed her away.
Elbow. Elbowed her out, yeah.
Crazy. Just crazy.
Crazy.
Unbelievable. Hey, listen, I am so sorry you're not in Congress right now. We need you there. What are the prospects of you coming back? What are the how do you get back? What's it looking like?
I am very confident that we're going to take back our seat we won in the special election, a Biden +4 district, but due to redistricting, they made Texas 34 a Biden 15, which made it 4 times harder for us to win our reelection. But that wasn't going to stop me. I knew that it was going to be a very difficult reelection, but my goal, honestly, was to overperform and bring down that double-digit Biden district. And we did that. We had one of the biggest overperformance. We actually overperformed by 8 points. And now this district is no longer a Biden 15. Now it's a D8 district. It's back to a single digits, which is exactly what we need. On our recent poll, we're actually up by 2. So that tells me that is the path to victory, that we just need to continue staying focused on the kitchen table issues that really matter to the people of Texas 34 and not the nonsense that is happening in Washington. We have currently right now the worst border crisis we've ever seen in our entire life. And we're also seeing the worst economy and the people of Texas District 34 and the American people right now are struggling to make ends meet every single month. And this is not the life that we had, just 3 years ago.
Right. It's so heartbreaking what's happening. Congresswoman, let me ask you this, and forgive me, it is a little bit about the nonsense in D.C., although arguably it's pretty important right now. There's an effort underway by Matt Gaetz to oust Speaker McCarthy, and they're actually voting on it right now, or just about to. I don't profess to know the ins and outs of all this stuff. Do you think this is a good thing or a bad thing that's happening?
I think it's a bad thing, but I have a lot of respect for all our members and why they do what they do. But I do believe that our focus needs to be winning in 2024 and keeping the majority in the House of Representatives and also taking the Senate. We need to focus on the Democrats right now. They're ruining our country. We have a serious border crisis here in South Texas that is not just hurting us, it's hurting the entire country. And we're talking about 10,000 people crossing illegally every single day, and nothing is being done. They're sending, the funding, the resources to South Texas, but what we need is policy. We need the Biden administration to change the policy and put in place back the laws that we already have. Just enforce them. And that's not going to happen under the Biden administration, unfortunately. So our focus needs to be, winning in 2024 and sending a strong message and taking Biden out of the White House. But, I'm I'm respectful, of our members in Congress and why they do what they do, but I don't think this is a good thing for us. I think we need to work together now more than ever, put our differences aside for the betterment of our country, for the betterment of our children. We have a very important election coming up, and I believe it's the most important election of our lifetime.
Yeah, and the fake news will just go nuts with this if they actually oust McCarthy, and Republicans will look like they're in shambles, and they will be in shambles. Listen, forgive me, Congresswoman, I had to take a break. Could you possibly stay with us on the other side? Okay, thank you so much. I'll be right back.
Greg Kelly
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
We're back with Congresswoman Mayra Flores, total superstar. She's not in Congress right now. They just rigged it, basically, so she wouldn't be in Congress, but I think she's coming back in a big way. Congresswoman, where were you born?
I was born in Burgos, Tamaulipas, Mexico, which is actually about 3 hours away from South Texas. My family's from here, from Texas, but my grandfather fell in love with my grandmother and moved to Mexico. And my grandmother actually did not want to live here in the United States, so they raised a beautiful family in Mexico. But because my grandfather is an American citizen, my father was able to also get his citizenship through his father, and I was also able to get my citizenship through my father as well, because he was an American citizen when I was born in Mexico as well. And my mom as well did not want to come here to the United States. It took a lot of persistence from my father, which I am very grateful, because I would have not had the opportunities that I had in this amazing country if we would have stayed in Mexico. But I'm very grateful to both my parents, very hardworking, migrant workers. We moved a lot growing up, and they instilled in me the value of hard work and the importance of education. And that is why I became a respiratory care practitioner, cared for the elderly and children in need here in South Texas. And I've been able to accomplish the American dream in this amazing country. And I want to make sure that my kids, that our kids have those same opportunities. And under the Biden administration, the American dream is dead. And that is why it's so important for us to bring back President Trump, to bring back to life the American dream.
And is it true that before you were elected to Congress, it wasn't like you were a state legislator or anything like that? You were not an elected person in politics, correct? You were doing
not
that
at all.
Wow.
Not at all. I'm a respiratory care practitioner. Like I said, I was in the medical field. My husband, who's a Border Patrol agent, but I just saw everything that they were doing to our communities. And I was told by many that I did not have the experience, that I don't come from a prestigious university, but that's what they've tried to instill in us, that your everyday American cannot be leaders of this country. And look at Biden. He has decades of political experience, graduated from the most prestigious university, and so did our vice president. And what good does that do if they have no love for our country, no common sense? So I tell the American people that, yes, we need to start leading in this country. And that's the problem, that we are not. We need your everyday American to become members of Congress, to become senators. Why not become president as well, and start, focusing on the everyday American people?
I love it, because those career politicians, what do they know? They don't know anything, how to raise money and smile and make fake promises. That's it. Right. You American people, Americans have real skill. Go to MyraFloresForCongress.com. Congresswoman, many, many thanks, okay? To be continued. Thank you.
Thanks. God bless.
You bet.
Greg Kelly, entertaining and informative
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
So remember, if you were listening at 1 o'clock, I said, I can't really figure out this whole battle in D.C. with the speaker and what's going on and what's the real agenda here? Well, I think I just figured the whole damn thing out. Wow. All right. So a couple of things. Nancy Pelosi didn't have to deal with any of this crap, right? Did they love Nancy Pelosi as the speaker? The Democrats? Not really. I mean, Nancy Pelosi, how could she hold her people in line? And McCarthy is having trouble, at least trouble with Matt Gaetz. Well, here's the big missing piece of the puzzle. Matt Gaetz is rich. Matt Gaetz and his dad, they have tens and millions of dollars. Now, a while back, you may hear, they came up, they tried to entrap Matt Gaetz, and they lied about him. And granted, he's been through the ringer, this guy. And I like him, but they were trying to blackmail him and his father, and it was totally fake. These scammers who actually went to jail for it. But they were trying to get $25 million out of these guys. And guess what? He's got $25 million, all right? That's a big chunk of this puzzle. Because what speakers do, Pelosi personally, and to a lesser extent McCarthy, they can turn off the money for a candidate. Oh, okay. Well, we've got this committee called the Republican Congressional Campaign Committee. We give money to candidates we like. And if we don't like you, we don't have to give you money. The Democrats have the same thing. They call it the DCCC, the Democrat Congressional Campaign Committee. And who basically runs that? The Speaker and or the minority chief, whatever. And so and not only that, she was rich. So she could make sure, okay, I want this person. I don't want this person. I want this person. And that's how she ruled. When something doesn't make sense, there's usually money at play. So with Gaetz, like, okay, he's blowing up the whole system. Well, he might as well. He's rich. And then there's this. So Matt Gaetz, I don't know the details of it. From time to time, I saw on websites or whatever, there was speculation that he was, and I think this was false, but, they linked him to all kinds of impropriety. I don't want to go into the detail of the alleged impropriety because it was alleged, and I think it was mostly untrue. And any ethics investigation of him, well, probably he wants dropped, but Kevin McCarthy won't let the ethics committee drop it. So this thing is kind of hanging over his head. And they have the ability to potentially make him look bad. Matt Gaetz. Not that he did anything illegal or wrong or whatever, but they have the potential to make him look a little bit bad. And if they make him look bad enough, they could vote to expel him. So maybe he thinks he's going out one way or the other. Why not go out with a bang? I don't know. Again, I like Matt Gaetz. He's very smart. Now we know he's rich. I talked to him in person for about 30 seconds. I've interviewed him a bunch of times. This seems a little bit much, but then again, you know what else seems a little bit much? These stupid, crazy omnibus spending bills. I don't like those either. It's up or down on a multi-trillion-dollar budget. What about line by line? They've been promising us for a long time. And it never seems to change significantly, does it? Now, is Kevin McCarthy part of the problem or, well, right now, I know other people, there's only about 5 or 6 guys in the Republican ranks who are about to turn on McCarthy. And I don't know too much about them. These are not names I'm particularly familiar with. Andy Biggs is probably the biggest one there. Now, there are people like Jim Jordan, who I like a lot. There's a Republican, a former F-18 guy from California who I like a lot. There's Marjorie Taylor Greene, who I like a lot. There's Lauren Boebert, who I like a lot. They're not voting for this. There's Michael Lawler from upstate New York, the Hudson Valley, who I like less, but I do like. And he's not on board. He's actively pushing back on Gaetz. So I don't know what the hell's going to happen here. I don't know what's going to happen. But it could happen very, very fast. Very fast. Indeed. All right. the other thing we're working on, let's see here. Republicans should also shut down any federal funding for the office of Letitia James, the Democrat New York AG, who is abusing her office by targeting and abusing Trump and other innocent Americans. This is from Tom Fitton from Judicial Watch. And he is totally and completely correct. You know, all of these local, state entities take some money, get some money from the federal government. Alvin Bragg even got employees from the Department of Justice to help him with the case against Trump. Now we have this. Hey, isn't it great that little 9-year-old girl was found? Oh, that was so good. Christopher Wright, 38 years old, is a father of 3 who owns a small business in Tennessee. Last week, he was shot and killed by Darrell Roberts, who had 66 prior arrests. You didn't hear about this story because it doesn't fit the narrative. You know what? It is so fascinating what makes the narrative and what doesn't make the narrative, what makes the news and what doesn't. I saw a kid, maybe 16 years old, with a great big mop of weird shaggy hair. I mean, he literally looked like one of those dogs that have the big, like he can't see through his own hair. It was crazy. I've never seen a haircut like this. It literally looked like a mop on top of his head. How is this kid ever going to see through his own hair? So he's in a neighborhood in a car and he's drag racing up and down the neighborhood. A little cul-de-sac, right? Going 50 miles per hour in like a 15 mile per hour zone. Back and forth, terrorizing people. So the neighbors are understandably upset. And they come out of their house. They come out of the garage. You know, it was a Saturday, and this all happened in North Carolina. And they're done washing their car, and they put down their hose, and they go over to the kid. Hey, what's wrong with you, buddy? Is something wrong with, what are you doing? You can't do that here. And they yell at and scream at the kid. Understandably so. But, and you know there's a big but here, right? The driver of the car happened to be black. The neighbors who were annoyed by it happened to be white. And this day and age, it just doesn't look good, according to some woke people, that a white adult would yell at a black teenager. That just, the optics are terrible. You know, the 2 white guys who were kind of like the most upset, they lost their job. They lost their job. They were fired. They were canceled. Now, the funny thing is, or it's actually not funny, the tragic thing, in addition, let's pretend that 15-year-old kid with the shaggy hair driving his car up and down, right? Let's pretend for a moment that instead of white men yelling at him, let's pretend that black men shot and killed him. Nobody would give a damn. Nobody would care. 0 news coverage, 0 attention, no jobs lost, nobody probably even arrested. And if they were arrested, out of jail in moments. In moments. Minneapolis is now burning all over again because of a woke DA. I'm looking live at Speaker McCarthy, who seems to not have a care in the world, but he's sweating a little bit. He's sweating. And the headline is, House braces for key vote to oust Speaker McCarthy. This does not feel right to me. I don't think this should be happening. I got a bad feeling about it. Hello, Nick. What's up?
Hey, Greg, how are you?
Good.
Greg, I don't understand. I'm a little confused. Why aren't they holding asylum hearings at these migrant centers? It just makes total sense, and they're not doing that.
Well, I don't want them here. First of all, that doesn't make any sense that they were here, and they were basically enticed here by Governor Hochul and Governor Adams. Now, they do have a lot of these guys asylum hearing dates, like, you know, in what year? In 2025. See you in court in a year and a half. But maybe there should be more of a federal role in these places. But to me, that lends an air of permanence to this and acceptability, and I don't like that. Nick, maybe. Oh, who's back is Jamal. Hello, Jamal. How are you?
Good afternoon. I have one complaint, and then I will go to my points.
please do not compare my first name with some idiot congressperson. You have 50% crazy in your caucus. We have 30% crazy. So please don't compare me with this idiot, whatever he was doing, when after January 6th, every corner of the Congress, there's a camera. I have no idea what he was thinking.
Calm down for a second, all right, Jamal? I was just making the point that I know two loudmouths from the Bronx, Jamal Bowman and you. Sometimes you can raise your voice, granted not as crazy as Jamal Bowman. You do it in a far more appropriate forum, the radio. You're allowed to pipe off. But being that you're both from the Bronx and both with the same name, what can I tell you, Jamal? Your name popped into my head. Do we have Jamal Bowman yelling and screaming? Let's get that. Jamal, it happens. I mean, come on. If you were listening to another guy named Greg on the radio and we made similar points or, and we were both say, I don't know, there are certain things in common. Say we're both I could see you making the connection or drawing a parallel. So don't be so sensitive.
Can I get to my points?
Well, tomorrow. I got to go to a break. No, you can do it. Go ahead. What?
You just contradicted yourself on your show. You said you do not invite a politician. You invited the most corrupted congresswoman from Texas. She lost the seat because of the corruption in her family. Stop. First of all, she's actually not a sitting member of Congress. Generally speaking, I've had politicians on. What are you talking about? I have politicians that I like and respect. And there was no corruption there. What blog, what Twitter account did you read? We love Myra Flores, and she's coming back. You just heard they rejiggered the whole district. They retooled it so she couldn't win. Nothing about corruption, Jamal. That's really rude of you to call up and make wild, false accusations like that. She's going to lose bigger this time.
Well, you know what? What do you care? What? I mean, you get so passionate about, you live in the Bronx. This is a border community in Texas. I mean, who are you rooting for? Who do you want to win that race? You don't know.
Democrat that is there.
Yeah, the Democrat who was there.
The Democrat, they take back the Congress, and so we can pass the real laws.
The real laws. All right. Well, Jamal, once again, we've gotten nowhere in this conversation, but I do like you for some reason. I do. And best to your family, okay? I know that they are big supporters of mine and my agenda, and my ideology. So give them my best, okay?
And you're the best too. Thank you.
Hey, you see? All right. We can agree on some things. I love it. All right. Thank you. Yeah, I know. And it's true. I wasn't saying he's like Jamal Bowman. Jamal Bowman broke the law. He pulled a fire alarm. That's wrong. Totally wrong. And then he was confronting people like he was quite frankly, like he was Antifa or something like that. Or maybe one of the crazier January 6ers. I mean, there were a couple of crazy January 6ers. There were. Most of them didn't break anything or hurt anybody. But, he was acting like a lot of these people act. Once they get in office, they don't know what to do. All they know how to do is yell and complain and scream. Eric Adams, Jamal Bowman, to a lesser extent, Letitia James. Who else? Who else is really good at highlighting a problem and not fixing it? Let me think. About 430 members of Congress, 95 senators, and maybe 40 or so governors. I'll be right back.
Greg Kelly
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Who'd have thunk it? I like plantains. Plantains are awesome food. I mean, I knew nothing about the fried banana situation, but it's really great. This is the first plantain I've ever had. I have to play this. It's from 2015. Donald Trump announcing his campaign for president, and he said something very important. Go ahead.
I would build a great wall, and nobody builds walls better than me, believe me. And I'll build them very inexpensively. I will build a great, great wall on our southern border, and I will have Mexico pay for that wall. Mark my words. Nobody would be tougher on ISIS than Donald Trump. Nobody. I will find within our military, I will find the General Patton, or I will find General MacArthur. I will find the right guy. I will find the guy that's going to take that military and make it really work. Nobody will be pushing us around.
All right. Well, he did some amazing things. And, you know, they only built 50 miles of the wall. Not true. 500 miles. That's a total fake news lie. And, of course, they were fighting him every step of the way. And we saw that. All right. We saw that. The other part that I like, defeated ISIS. How about that? ISIS was raging. People forget they were chopping off heads, putting it on the internet. Remember? How did he beat ISIS? Well, he found a guy named General Kane, actually, over there. And they loosened the rules of engagement. But that General Kane, guys like that who was in the battlefield, those guys are few and far between. Now, some of the most heavily advertised generals, one of them was Mattis, M-A-T-T-I-S. And the Swamp recommended him. And he recommended a guy named Kelly, K-E-L-L-Y. Yeah, no relation to me. These guys, I think, were, in the end, quite treacherous. Very, very treacherous guys. And the other thing about generals that not everybody understands or realizes, that they kind of have whiplash. They get promoted so quickly that they start pinning stars on left and right. And then whammo, presto, you're a 4-star general. It goes from like colonel to general in about 6 years. I mean, like 4-star general can happen very, very quickly. Sometimes it happens even much faster than that. It can happen in a year and a half, like Al Haig. And when it goes that quick, guess what you're not ready for? Strategic thought, sophisticated political thought. And you're very, very pliable. You can be manipulated so easily. And they became generals by kissing butt, in large part. And when everybody, the entire system is telling you that Trump is not to be trusted, Trump is an enemy, guess what? These guys see which way the wind is blowing and go where the power is, because they've been doing that their whole lives. So he was let down miserably, and he signed up for the fake news that somehow the generals knew what they were doing. And too often they don't. They have no clue, believe me, especially that guy named Kelly. We'll be right back with Ernie Anastos.
Greg Kelly, entertaining and informative
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
We are back with broadcasting legend, true broadcasting legend, Ernie Anastos.
Who's that?
Stop it. You know what I'm talking about.
Come on.
I learned recently Ernie Anastos.
Yes, sir.
Who's, I mean, God, talk about household name famous, but you're in a Beastie Boys song. Did you know that?
Yeah. They were talking about following the news with Ernie Anastos. And it's finger licking good. I think that's the name of the song. And I ran into them. Yeah. And I was very grateful because they were, using me in the lyrics of that song. And they said something like, and I get the news from Ernie Anastos. And it was really cool. And a lot of people have mentioned that to me. I think that was a nice honor.
It's very cool.
Yeah.
And I think it's a testament to your fame, your in people's hard drive. The thing is about you also is you became famous like before the internet. Like fame is very fleeting now. You're in the hard drives as opposed to the RAM, the stuff that comes in and out, blah, 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 overwritten. You're famous in a way that a lot of people today aren't famous.
But what had a lot to do with that was the fact that you mentioned the internet and so forth and cable. We were on 1978 in New York, before we had all of that. So you only had around the country basically 3 networks, ABC, CBS, and NBC. And then Fox developed later. In New York, you had some independent stations, 9 and 11. But I think that the reason that, we did benefit in many ways was because we were only the show in town.
Yeah.
And people would follow us. I mean, the ratings, for example, at 11 o'clock at Eyewitness News, they were through the roof. And it's all changed because it's dispersed. People are not really appointment viewing that much. Taking away from the news and sports, people don't really do that. Everything's DVR, streaming, and it's on demand. So that's changed a lot. So that's helped us in terms of our personality.
Yeah, no, I do remember in fourth grade, somebody did a book report, not a book report, some sort of special project, and talking about you and Storm Field and Roger Grimsby, and the whole room knew exactly, fourth graders knew what they were talking about. I got a question for you. How is it? You look fantastic.
Thank you, my friend. You do. Yeah.
Well,
I'm good.
But you have maintained it. I mean, my goodness gracious. I mean, you're just like, you're defying every. How do you do it? What do you special care? What do you do?
You know what? I've been asked that question many times, Greg, and very simple. First of all, you have genes, and that helps a lot. My family has lived a long time, and they all look pretty good, I'll be honest with you. And I also do take care of myself. I think that makes a difference. I've never been a smoker. I'm not a drinker. When I say not a drinker, I'll have a glass of wine at a party or something. But I'm not a drinker. I don't abuse myself in any ways. I don't drink, coffee or tea, even that.
You don't?
No, I don't. I really don't. And I'll just have juice and water, and I don't do any drugs. So I think that helps a lot. But more than that, and you've known me a long time, I think it's a positive attitude. And I do a lot of positivity. But I've always been in a family of that nature. Grandfather, grandmother, parents, they were always thinking about doing something good. And we were very respectful. Greek-American family. And, I learned from my family that values were important. Work hard. Make sure you pay attention to your name and your reputation. You didn't want to do anything. And a lot of people are listening right now and saying, I understand that. It's kind of an ethnic thing as well. But, you don't bring shame to your family. You try to do the best you can. And I think that was important. So I wake up every day and I feel like, you know what? Thank you so much for this day. And you and I have shared that feeling. Thank you for giving me this day, and I'm going to make the best of what I have.
Also, the positivity, it actually is kind of reminiscent, and some of the other things you said, of Trump. I mean, he is people overlook this. He's extremely positive. Like you, he abstains from all that stuff. And people kind of marvel at him, the energy, the consistency, and with him and you, age, nobody even thinks to ask age because it's just so remote. It's not it's not a thing.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, look.
You know what? Can I just say something? I've known Donald Trump a long time. When I started in New York in 78, in 1980, he was building Trump Tower. And I remember calling him up, and we met, and we became friends, and he said, hey, I want to be on your show. And I had Donald on repeatedly. He was on the news all the time. Anytime we needed reaction. And we became good friends with his family, his brother Robert, wonderful human being. He passed away. But I spent time with his mother, father. His parents have had dinner in our home. And I remember talking to Donald many times in the early days, and he really wasn't political, Greg. He really didn't get into politics. He was really more of, building up his name and reputation and his brand. But he never got into politics. Didn't really talk about it that much. And he just, came out of boom all of a sudden. He became, the kingmaker. And then he himself decided to run. But I've known him a long time, and he certainly is bigger than life in many ways. Okay. And people can be listening now and saying, hey, look, there's a negative and there's a positive. Okay. There are two sides to the story. And I respect that. All my life, my career in broadcasting, I've always been right down that middle, Greg. You know that. Right down that road. And I've always listened to people and said, I'm not taking a side. But with all due respect, I mean, Trump has really achieved amazing things. I mean, from the time I knew him in 1980 to where he is now, there are so many issues, and people talk about him consistently. People just, anywhere you turn, he's on the news. He's on every program.
Yeah.
And now, people are waiting to see what's going to happen next.
So I do remember some of those shows, and I've seen them actually. Documentaries have used the footage, used your interviews with Donald Trump over the years. Now, I would say this, though. I did see him becoming political. I mean, if you look back, you could see his philosophy, his ideology. It was forming. I mean, a lot of what he's saying right now, he's said in the 1980s. I mean, he believed that we were getting ripped off by China. Actually, back then it was Japan. He believed in a strong military. He believed in borders. He talked about illegal immigration. He talked about crime.
He did, but it was more low key, though. You'll agree. I mean, he really wasn't picked up too much on that because he was still doing, showcase movies, and he was appearing on television and doing things.
Sure.
He did give his opinion, no question about it, but it really didn't get into a full blown thing until the late 80s and 90s.
You're right.
Yeah.
In the late late 80s, 1989 in particular, when he took out the full page ad in the New York Times, calling for the death penalty for cop killers. This is in the aftermath of the Central Park jogger case.
Yeah, I remember that well.
But it's been totally misrepresented by the press. They say, he was calling for the death penalty for those innocent boys. And, by the way, this is something else. They weren't innocent. And number two, he was actually not calling for the death penalty. She did not die. And he specifically said in that ad, calling for the death penalty for cop killers. So it was just a little example of, so I do believe fake news is a real thing. How do you feel about that?
Well, I think what's happened to news, people are asking, is it news or views? And that's changed because, when I first started and working in television news in the 70s and the 80s and even the 90s, I think the internet and I think all of that changed. When we had 24-hour news, okay, you have to fill the time. And you can't fill the time with just straightforward news. You have to talk about a story and then use that as a hook to get into a discussion. And so as a result, you've got talk news television. And there are a lot of opinions. And I think that competition, and you and I, we know a lot about this, competition, how can you get those eyeballs? How can you get those readers? How can you get those listeners? And what do? You go into a newsroom and everybody's saying, what do we have today? Yesterday wasn't enough. Where's the next angle? Where's the next story? So people are constantly searching. I will always defend, and you know this, I will always defend, the right for people to speak, and I will not censor news. But we have lost a lot in terms of standards and practices. Okay? There was a time when you were very cautious about what you put on. Now we have a lot of citizen journalism. And people are out there saying and doing whatever they want. And it's not fact-checked. It's not official information. And that kind of becomes mainstream in a way, and that's what people are listening and watching. So I'm very cautious about what I say, because there are a lot of good journalists who are still sincere and working very hard. But unfortunately, there are people out there who are looking to make a name for themselves. And how do you do that? By making news.
Well, there is obviously some of that going on. I would submit this, though. I would suggest this. Yeah. The citizen journalists are often better than the professional journalists.
I understand what you're saying.
Because they're providing, footage, and the footage is paramount. I also think because of the phone and the internet, people kind of do know generally. I call it electronic osmosis. They have an intuitive idea of what happened that day.
Yeah.
So, okay, now what? Now what? Now what? Okay, this happened today. Now what? Quite frankly, discussing it, putting it in perspective.
Yeah.
And this is where you and I may differ. I don't have the reverence for old school journalism that a lot of people have today.
Okay.
Because growing up, I didn't grow up in media. Mm-hmm. People like you, I certainly have great respect for and had back then and now.
So how is your view different?
Well, let me tell you this. It was very kind of, I remember it so well. In the 1980s and in the 90s when I was in the Marine Corps, but in the 80s when I was growing up, and in part thanks to my dad, I knew what really happened.
Okay.
And I also knew what the reporters would say about what happened. I don't know if you remember the name Daniel Schorr.
Sure, of course. CBS News.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, and he had some issues, yes.
In 1992, I remember where I was, and he was going on and on about how Secretary Baker resigned as Treasury Secretary to take over the George H.W. Bush campaign, and this is an unprecedented event, and it is so bad for the country. Well, I knew that the same damn thing happened in 1988. All right. And the same guy left the same job to do the same damn thing. Yeah. And here's Daniel Schorr saying that this is unprecedented and horrible for the country. Another moment I remember, I volunteered for Rudy Giuliani in 1989.
Right.
And I knew a lot of what was going on with the campaign. And then he loses, and then I see Jack Germond, who was the guy with the Baltimore Sun, who I liked a lot, and I see him on the McLaughlin group, and I see him say three things that are categorically false about Rudy Giuliani and the campaign and what he was going to do next. And I'm like,
yeah, I understand.
But this was a wake up, not even a, this was a wake up moment, because I'm like, these guys who I thought were so smart in my childhood, they're 1,000% wrong. They don't know what they're talking about. And I think that they were a little bit more casual back then. They were arrogant, and they thought if we say it, it must be news. It must be true.
You raise a lot of good points in terms of arrogance. Many times when you get too big, and you feel the power and you abuse that power, and there are good and bad everywhere. There is a book that I enjoyed reading, Information Anxiety. The author was Richard Saul Wurman. Interesting book because he talks about how people are anxious, just like what you're saying now, to what they're hearing, seeing, and understanding to be the truth or not the truth. And I think people feel that way. If you talk to, and I know you do this as well. I love to talk to people on the street, a question of the day and so forth. And I'll always ask them, who do you believe? Who do you trust? What's wrong with our country? Everybody is confused, Greg. Everybody is looking for an answer. People are really trying to figure out where is the answer to what they want. Where's the truth? Who really can I trust? And am I getting the information that I really need? Because we're speaking about media. I think if you ask people right now, if you poll them and you make them call us, they're going to say the same thing. I'm not quite sure what I'm getting. They want to believe that there's a source. I know WABC Radio really goes out of their way to try and do as much as they can to bring the information forward with a lot of viewpoints. But there are a lot of media outlets who don't do that. And their ideology is there. But people are identifying it and saying, okay, I know you're conservative, I know you're liberal and so forth, but it confuses people. It confuses people. Many times, and I will stand up for local television news. Many times when I'm just watching a local newscast, not just in New York, anywhere, I'm just getting the information, just the facts, ma'am. They'll report, unfortunately, shootings, murders, and so forth. But it's straightforward. And even when it comes to national reporting, international reporting, because they don't have the time for it. And the format is not designed for that. The format for local news is just to put the stories on the air. There's a rundown, and you cover it, and you cover the stories. And I applaud a lot of the local stations for doing that. Now, sometimes they've gone the other way, and I'm not going to mention companies and corporations.
Especially on Trump.
Who will influence, they will influence the station. But for the most part, local news has maintained a certain amount of independence.
Yeah, look, I don't consume it anymore, to be honest. I just don't look at it. And,
because why?
There are a million other things to look at. And quite frankly, there are more efficient ways to get information, which is from the phone. I can just inhale information very quickly.
Don't have the time
to sit around. It's great, quite frankly, that you are where you are now. I mean, the whole idea of good evening, everybody. It's 10 o'clock and, here we are. That was great for decades and decades and decades.
Yeah.
I believe it is becoming, not yet, but becoming, so antiquated that it's not necessary. Because,
I've always relied, and this goes back to call it old school, but I still think it holds up today. I've always relied on wire services. The Associated Press, for example. I remember just ripping it off the wire and reading it because it was just the facts. And many times I will do that. I'll go to AP, I'll go to Reuters, for example, and just check them out just to see what the stories are. But I jump around. I read everything. But it's easier to read it and absorb it and then close it off when you want rather than sitting down and watching a whole newscast.
Now, I'm going to run this by you, though.
Go ahead.
I do think that there is a debate underway, and it's a fair debate.
Yeah.
It's a debate what is a fact?
Alternative facts. Okay, we never heard that before.
But that's a real thing.
Yeah, what are the facts?
People would say, and there's another big moment for me, CNN. I saw Brian Stelter stand up and say, it is a fact. They had a fact checker. It is a fact that Donald Trump supported the war in Iraq. That is a fact.
I understand.
Now, wait a second. Oh,
yeah.
No, it's not a fact. It is a fact that on October 8th of 2002, Donald Trump said to Howard Stern, when specifically asked, should we invade Iraq?
Oh.
He said, yeah, I guess so. He stuttered. He said, yeah, I guess so. Well, it was still under consideration before the U.S. Congress.
Right.
So is it a fact that he supported the war in Iraq?
Yeah.
What is a fact?
Yeah.
I don't think that's a fact. I think the fact is he said this on this day. That's a fact. Now you're interpreting.
That's the key, what you just said, interpretation. You know what else is going to be a factor very soon? I mean, it's there now, but it's going to become even more widespread. Artificial intelligence. AI, my friend. Watch out for that.
I think it's a little overrated.
Well, yeah, but they're going to be able to take advantage of all of the technology and be able to take your voice and take your face and take information and create something that's going to be very challenging. I'll use that word. Very challenging.
Well, I mean, everybody's been telling me about Chat GPT. I got on it. It's
it's not all that bad.
It's as left wing as Google and the rest. And it's all, I can see it. It's got a ways to go. I lost sleep over Chat GPT and then I tried it. I'm like, no, this thing sucks. Anyway, look, we got to go. Ernie Anastos.
Hey, Greg Kelly.
Enjoyed it very much.
Thank you, my friend.
We'll be back.
Thank you.
Greg Kelly
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Damn,
limit safe grow 1.471. I reluctantly agreed to do that, to go to 1.526.
All right, calm down.
In order to pass our bill.
This is Congressman Bob Good of Virginia. They're having a debate right now on ousting McCarthy. All right, this could go on for a while or could just take one round. I don't know what's going to happen. They're debating it right now. Bob Good is making a point. I think he's pro-McCarthy. Wow. Carmine, hello.
Greg, I keep pushing this movie. I'm going to see it. You know, we did wonders with The Sound of Freedom. The Blind is about the Robertson family, a beautiful family. I knew nothing about Duck Dynasty.
Who? Who?
The Duck Dynasty. Phil Robertson.
Okay.
It's the love story between him and his wife, and he gets married and he faces his demons and has a salvation message. It's a message that every person has to come to.
All right, sounds good. The Blind, is it out yet?
It's out. It's only 1 week, and it's a double meaning. The blind meaning when you hide to get the ducks, it's called the blind. But also, like the song, I once was blind, but now I see.
All right, I love it. We got to go see The Blind, and if Carmine likes it, you're going to like it too. Thank you, Carmine. The Blind. We got to go see that movie. I will make a point to see it. Lewis, hello.
Yeah, I went to high school with Eric Adams.
That's
in Bayside High School.
Bayside High School? I thought he was from Brooklyn.
Yeah. He went to Bayside High School in 1978. And by the way, I
don't know if that's true. Well, what about him?
Biden and the Democrats are
Hey,
not
Lewis.
obeying the country.
Hey, Lewis. Tell us about Adams. What was he like in high school?
He smoked pot. He was very unruly, and he fought a lot.
Well, it sounds like him, but I don't know about that Bayside High School. I'll take your word for it for now. Lewis, I got to go because Barbara's standing by. Barbara, hello. What do you think of this McCarthy thing?
Hi, Greg. Well, I am so glad to see that we have some people in the House of Representatives who will stand up against these bills that have been passed again and again and again, that have led us where we are till no one knows who's being paid off and who's being funded, buried in these bills. And we can take a lesson from Alex de Tocqueville, who said, the American Republic will endure until the day Congress discovers it can bribe the public with the public's money. And that has gone on for too long. And I see Matt Gaetz and others in Congress standing up against that.
All right.
So that we control what we spend and we know where it goes. No one knows where this money goes. They don't know. They don't have time to read.
I hear you, but you know what? McCarthy didn't invent that system, and Trump just posted this on Truth Social. Why is it that Republicans are always fighting among themselves? Why aren't they fighting the radical left Democrats who are destroying our country? I don't know who's right here. Barbara, I'm glad. Your opinion means a lot to me. I'm going to consider it, and I'm a little bit confused, and I think there might be a few other things at play here that aren't obvious. The Ethics Committee, many, many millions of dollars, all kinds of other stuff. To be continued, and thank you. See you tomorrow.